Oh my god, I'm so excited to be filming this video because I've been getting into more and more books, and this month was a good reading month. I had a lot of really good ratings this month. I think every one of them except one are like 4 stars and over, which is like amazing because I also take my ratings very seriously. I think it's so good to start off the new year. Obviously no spoilers in this video. So I have like all these books here. These are all the ones that I read plus 2 of them that I actually read online. So I don't have 2 of them with me, but they total up to 10 books. I literally get invested too easily. It's not okay, like my soul hurts. Let's just get into it. I'm gonna do it in the order that I read the books. So the first book I read this month is Daisy Jones and the Six. If you don't know what this book is, I don't know where you've been. I think this is such a popular recommended book right now. Something about me is I don't research a lot about my books before I read them. This was definitely not what I expected. I have read other Taylor Jenkins Reid books and I loved them to death. So I was holding that same amount of hype to this one. Definitely did not disappoint. It's basically surrounding this girl and a band type of thing. It's really good. It has so many amazing quotes. This author, she's trying to murder me. Like, she is trying to literally kill me. Sometimes I'll read her stuff and I'm like, okay, well, I have to go through a whole episode of me rethinking my whole life. I literally read this through New Year's. I rate it like a 4.5 stars, so close to a 5 stars. The only reason why I'm not giving it a 5 stars is because even though it was so good, it was kind of like confusing why it was so good, because at some points I was like, I don't even know where this is gonna go, because it's not written as a normal story. It's kind of written as more of like a dialogue type of thing, which is really cool because there's like little mini twists and you see multiple people's perspectives on the same story. This is so realistic and it also broke my heart. Obviously, I don't think this book is for everyone, just because I can think about other people's reading style and I could see why someone maybe wouldn't like this book just because of the way that it was necessarily written, because it's so different than anything I've ever read before. But in my opinion, that's why I liked it so much. The next 2 books I read are part of a series. I read The Inheritance Games and The Hawthorne Legacy. I'm gonna start off with The Inheritance Games. So I basically wanted to read this book because obviously I watch book videos on YouTube and a bunch of people were saying that this book resembles the movie Knives Out, which I think is so facts. Like, it's so true. Obviously not the same, but has that same vibe. So I understand where they were coming from, and definitely I do agree. It has a romance subplot. If you don't know what the movie Knives Out is, it's like a whole mystery type of story. Obviously it has you questioning things, but it's really good. The things that I like about it are that it has short chapters which make me feel so good about myself. There's not that much romance, so if you're reading it because you think it's a romance book, it's not, but it definitely has a hint of it inside the book. So like the background story about this book is that it's about this girl who ends up by inheriting a lot of money, and she's very confused, but you see like the little twisted games and all the questions become answered, and there's a 3rd book coming out soon, so I'm super excited for that. But after this book, there's the Hawthorne Legacy. I rated The Inheritance Games 4 stars, but I also rated this 4 stars. This book is basically like a continuation of the romance and of the questions, because the first book leaves on a really good cliffhanger, so I was like really needing to buy this book after I finished that one. It was a super easy read. It was like very chill, very easy to understand, and also the covers I feel like are so different than what the book is actually about. When I showed this to one of my friends, they thought I was reading like some dark academia fantasy novel, but it's not like that. So in this video, and a lot of times I read a lot of books that are highly recommended. So like, let's pretend are really popular on TikTok or on YouTube. But this one I found on my own. I did not find it from any recommendations. I kind of wanted to read something that's super different than what I usually read. The next book I read is The Poison of Money by Jo Torrance. This is so good. Honestly, I need to reread this when I'm a bit older too, I find. It's just so good and very real. I feel like already by the title, like you can kind of think about what it's about, but it's in a perspective of a young boy where he tries to figure out his family tree, and it kind of shows his story and his background, as well as what people had to go through. For example, the Great Depression, Prohibition, the stock market crashing, and also a bunch of tragedy like death. And it's like not written in a way that's dark and I feel like really depressing. I feel like it's written in a way that's just real and that's just telling you the reality of what life is about, as well as going into topics such as the mafia and politics, showing the corruption and poison within that money. I definitely see people that are a bit older enjoying this more. Again, if you want to be an educated queen, read this book. 5 stars. The next book I read is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Excuse me, I was not expecting this. I thought it was gonna be like the book One of Us is Lying. This one is definitely a mystery. It had me literally almost having a heart attack. I don't know if that's only because of the book, but also because I was literally on extremely high amounts of caffeine when I was reading this book, which was probably one of the worst decisions ever because my heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest, and the chapters always end on some type of cliffhanger, so it makes you want to read more, which is like the best things that authors can do with books. Obviously, if you're reading a book and you're not wondering what's going to happen next, you're not going to want to keep reading it. It has a little subplot of romance, like the smallest ever. It's about this girl, and there was a murder that happened 5 years ago. For her school project, she decides that she wants to do it on that murder. 4 stars. After almost having a heart attack from that book, I decided that I was gonna go back to my little romance phase, try to get a cute YA romance book. So I picked this one. It's called Better Than the Movies. It was good for its time. Definitely if I went with another book, even if it was really, really good, I would not have enjoyed it because I was like getting into that reading slump type of phase. I was getting really tired and couldn't handle my heart popping out of my chest even more than it already was. With this book, my heart was still low-key popping out of my chest because obviously there's like cringe parts. Like I feel like that's inevitable with YA romance books, exactly like a rom-com. I am very obsessed with rom-coms. I love like shitty romance movies in the best way possible. I give it a 3 stars. This book is about this girl who's so obsessed with rom-coms that she like romanticizes and wants them to be who she has made up in her mind. And kind of when he doesn't do those things, it's easy for her to get the ick and get out. Super relatable. Like I feel that. I'm so on that level. I feel like I'm literally describing myself. She ends up by seeing this guy that moved away when she was young, but when she was younger, she had a crush on him. And so now the feelings kind of come back, but at the same time, she doesn't know him and she's creating this whole persona of him. There's enemies to lovers in this. The next book I read this month is a very, very hyped up fantasy novel, The Cruel Prince. I'm so not into fantasy, I'm telling you guys right now, but this book actually really like did it for me, which I was so shocked about. I don't know why, but my brain literally cannot wrap around like this fantasy world and like the different creatures and all that stuff. Like I start getting lost and my brain starts to wander while I read. So then I ended up by just like skimming over a couple pages and I'm like, oh my god, like I have to go back. Like I don't understand what's happening. This is the first book in the series and I found it was so easy to understand. I really, really enjoyed it. I was going into this thinking that it was going to be a romance book. It definitely is not. It has, I think, like not even 1% romance in this book. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that smidge of romance starts continuing into the second book. I don't want to give anything away about this book. I feel like everything I can give away is going to be spoiling it. I honestly don't know how to explain this book at all. It was good, you know, with that 1% of romance, it had me screaming. I rated this 4 stars. So the next 3 books I read are a part of the same series. Shatter Me, which I read online. Destroy Me, which is the little novella inside the book. And Unravel Me, which I have a hard copy of. I don't know specifically what category that book actually falls under, but it definitely has a little bit of fantasy in my opinion. Definitely not like The Cruel Prince. It's still very real, just obviously with some fantasy parts to it. The writing of this author gives me chills. Like so good. I think it's like just so beautifully written to the point where what she's saying, I'm like, I literally feel you. This is a book and I feel all of the emotions that are happening right now. Literally makes me go insane, crying, screaming, throwing up. It has a romance plot, like definitely half romance and like, you know, what's going on in the story. That book was so good. I gave it a 4 stars. Shatter Me books, they're set in a dystopian society. It's this girl who has a lethal touch, so everyone's obviously scared of her. It's like not normal for people, and so she's locked up in an asylum. You see the pain of being different. There's just tragedy, but at the same time is covered up with humorous side characters, which I thought was done so impeccably. The second book, which is like a little novella, is like right after that, which I definitely recommend reading. It's in one of the characters that you'll meet in the first book's perspective, so it's not like a retelling of what happened already. It's kind of telling their perspective and like what happened after. After reading the second book, you're gonna see a correlation with what happens in that person's perspective in here. This book literally, I think, shattered my soul. The writing, again, so amazing. Definitely didn't lose her touch. It's a continuation obviously of the first book and of the romance. which develops so well. Some of the romance parts make me believe that I will never find anyone that I love as much as these characters. Like, you'll see me smiling at ink on paper. Like, it's actually not healthy. I rate the little novella 4 stars, and this book, I'm still thinking. Right now I have it set at 5 stars. If I'm lowering it at all, it's gonna be like 4.5 and up. These are all the books I read this month. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely hope you guys found a book that maybe you haven't read already, or if you can relate to me on the ones that we have both read. I'd literally love to hear some of your opinions if you have read them. This is my wrap up of what I read in January. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.